Attitudes and boundaries in counseling and human services. Research seems to indicate that clients respond and heal more readily when the worker has the right attitudes, regardless of the method used. The attitudes that we hold about other people are bound to be communicated one way or the other, either verbally or through our nonverbal behaviors. It's important that in the helping services we are positive and supportive of our clients, which fosters strong rapport. Attitudes such as superiority or feeling like you're better than your client are always inappropriate and unethical and need to be avoided at all costs. There is a natural power difference between the client and the counselor in the counseling relationship. Naturally, the counselor is seen as having more power because they are the professional in the relationship. It is our duty, as the counselor or case manager, to try to even the playing field as much as possible. This can be a matter of allowing the client to call you by your first name and not your title. Or if you're uncomfortable with that, just simply having chairs at the same level, not sitting behind a desk when communicating with clients. All of these kind of subtleties will add to the power difference that is already established in the relationship. As the helping professional, we want to make sure that we do our best to make clients feel comfortable and to reduce the amount of power difference that is occurring. In order to start working effectively with clients, we first need to do some self-reflection on our own life. Some of our own work may include forgiving ourselves for past mistakes we've made, or mistakes that we make with clients, situations that we think we could have handled differently. It's important that we're not so hard on ourselves that we're unwilling to forgive our mistakes and be kind to ourselves. Often, we may find ourselves asking clients to do things that we haven't quite been willing to do for ourselves yet. There is a saying that every good counselor also has a counselor. And this is because we all have our stuff, our baggage to work through, and they can be things that, if not dealt with, can impact the counseling relationship. And our first ethical principle is to do no harm. And so if there's ever a situation that comes up due to things in our life that we haven't dealt with, it could potentially harm the client. And so we need to increase our self-awareness. We need to explore some of the areas that may be problematic for us when seeing clients. And we need to have a willingness to work on that, whether it's through personal reflection or seeking counseling ourselves or seeking supervision. Warmth, genuineness, and empathy are the attitudes that draw people out. They make them feel safe and allow them to proceed. It is not acceptable, and in fact, it is unethical to diminish the fragile self-esteem that clients bring with them or may bring with them. Cold, insincere, or insensitive attitudes create uncertainty for clients, often about themselves or their relationship with others. We have an ethical obligation to refrain from ever diminishing purposefully another's sense of self-worth. The cornerstone of our practice is to do no harm. The second moral principle is to do good or foster growth in clients. If we are bringing a bad or negative attitude into the helping relationship, or giving the client a sense of diminished self-esteem or self-worth, then we are going against our primary moral principles. There is considerable research on empathy that it provides a foundation for a healthy relationship, that we are able to put ourselves in another's shoes and accurately communicate an understanding of a client's underlying emotions. In a helping relationship, we always want to be empathetic, not sympathetic. Being sympathetic means that we are feeling sorry for someone, and that is not helpful in the counseling relationship or any professional helping relationship. Empathy, on the other hand, increases our ability to feel and understand what the client's emotions are and how to help them move through that. When empathy is practiced well, it makes it safe for others to talk about deeper concerns and problems. Carl Rogers was really instrumental in talking about the key components of warmth, genuineness, and empathy in person-centered or humanistic therapy. It is the foundation of the skills that we use in counseling. Even though empathy and compassion are important components, Carl Rogers still raised concerns that the extent to which a person feels empathy and is engaged with another, the boundary between the helper and the client can become blurred. And so we don't ever want to become enmeshed with clients and start to blur the boundaries between what is the professional relationship and what is becoming a more personal relationship. It is important then, when working with individuals from all backgrounds, that we suspend judgment in the counseling or helping relationship. Just because we are the professional and the clients are clients, it doesn't make us a better person or more well-equipped to handle our problems, because we all know that as counselors, we're just people too, and we do have problems of our own. A prerequisite for being a counselor or a helping professional is not that we have all our stuff together, but part of it is being able to compartmentalize that stuff that could interfere with the relationship, and to be able to put judgment aside and really be present for the client in whatever way that they need us to be. Judging people by our own standards is not really helpful. Everybody is different, and it's important that we respect the individuality of others. Comparing our own life choices to theirs or vice versa also is not helpful. We need to be as objective as possible and make sure that the client's autonomy is preserved, their ability to make their own decisions and to guide their own journey. Whenever we sit in judgment of another, we put up a barrier to real understanding or rapport building, and ultimately, we are not as helpful to clients. Ultimately, when working with others, we want to increase a person's sense of self-worth and confidence. Encouragement does this because it invites clients to grow and it supports them in that growth. Discouragement, on the other hand, shuts down growth and can even effectively cause people to regress. Shaming, forcing, or pushing a person towards a goal can be a form of discouragement. Another form of discouragement could be focusing on mistakes that the client has made, or demanding unrealistic outcomes or perfection. We want to make sure that we're not giving only negative feedback, but we're also giving positive feedback to encourage clients to continue the growth that they're making and the progress that they're making. So it's important that we're realistic as helping professionals. A lot of us get into the helping profession because, well, we want to do just that. We want to help others. And a lot of times we can want to save the world. And this is great. It's really good to have an optimistic view and to see that we can create positive change in people's lives. However, we also need to be realistic in the process. The fact is that not all clients are cooperative, predictable, and grateful. If they were, in all probability, they would not be seeking our services. Complaining about the client's behavior and wishing it were different is pretty pointless. Our field requires us to work with difficult people, people who may be frightened or ashamed, sometimes not as competent as others, and sometimes can be very sick. These characteristics mean that we will often meet and help people who are frustrating or challenging, but deserve the same types of quality services as every other person. There are boundaries between clients and workers that help to prevent ethical violations, and they facilitate the helping relationship by providing some structure. Just to be clear, it is the worker's responsibility, the human service professional, who is responsible for maintaining these boundaries and keeping up ethical codes. There are some ways that we cross boundaries, and a few are listed here below. These are not all-inclusive. There are many types of boundary crossings and boundary violations that can occur that are not listed. Please refer to your ethical codes in order to explore other boundary crossings or boundary violations. It is entirely possible that a client can remind you of you. How would you respond to a person who came in to see you whose life experiences, age, and circumstances were very similar to yours? What boundary issues might occur? Would you be likely to reveal more about yourself that is relevant or helpful in this situation? Could competition evolve over the best and more satisfactory solutions or results? There are dangers about boundary crossings and violations that we need to be aware of. Another way that we may cross boundaries is when the client is dealing with a problem that we once had. We can relate to the situation that the client is in, and we may want to offer our own advice in how we handled the situation. But we have to remember that not all situations, even if they have similar circumstances, are resolved in the same way. And so, offering our solutions to a problem that we dealt with may not be the most ethical way to move forward with the client. One of the last boundary crossings that I want to mention is when we want the client to use a specific solution so that we can appear more effective and competent as a human service professional. This is problematic because it takes away the client's autonomy, their ability to make their own decision. If we're forcing them into a situation where we're kind of making the decision for them, it takes away their right to choose. It's also important that we note that not all of our clients need to be successful in the way that we measure success. Worrying that a client is a reflection on you can lead to numerous problems such as coercion, intimidation, or pressure in an effort to get clients to do what the worker believes will look best or be best for the client. Detrimental boundaries may look like expecting that people who look like me will act like me and think like I do. Or expecting that people who do not look like me will not be like me and will be very different. It's important that we note that a person of another race or culture may have very similar values and circumstances as we do. On the contrary, a person of our own race or culture may hold very different views and have very different circumstances. Our beliefs about other people stem from our own stereotypes, even when we're not entirely aware of it. It is important that we are constantly assessing and monitoring our stereotypes and our boundaries so that we can recognize any problematic thinking or behavior prior to it becoming a problem or influencing the counseling relationship. Transference and countertransference are two words that we really need to know that are important in the helping relationship. Transference is a collection of feelings and attitudes that the client holds about you. Transference is when a client takes those feelings and attitudes and they project it onto the counselor. Sometimes we remind clients of someone they knew in the past. We may not even look like them. However, there may be something about our personality or the way we talk that reminds us of someone that they knew. Clients may only be dimly aware of it. However, this can be an opportunity for us to do some real work in the counseling relationship. It's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing that transference occurs. It just is what it is. But sometimes, in the right situation, transference can be used as a beneficial tool in the counseling relationship. For example, if an older middle-aged male counselor is seeing a person who is a 20-year-old female college student who is living on her own for the first time. This 20-year-old female college student decided to use the counseling services because they were part of her tuition and fees, and she thought that it would be helpful just to talk about some time management and study skills that would help her be successful in her college career. In the process of counseling, it becomes apparent that her counselor, male, middle-aged counselor, reminds her of her father, who recently, about 3 years ago, divorced from her mother. And so, if you see where I'm going with this, the client may start to hold some bad feelings about the counselor because the counselor reminds the person of her father who left. As the process of counseling unfolds, the counselor can use the feelings that the client has toward the counselor that are not actually about the counselor but about her father, and they can do some interventions to pull out those feelings and really process through them to help this student deal with some of the pain and feelings that are still happening for her, that are part of the divorce. This is an example of how transference can be really helpful in the right situation. It is important to note that transference can happen at any point, and it's not necessarily a reflection on you. Clients can act sometimes in unexpected ways and somewhat inappropriately. You need to understand that when transference is occurring, it's not really about you. The feelings and attitudes are really about the person who you remind the client of. Countertrans, on the other hand, occurs when the worker projects thoughts and feelings onto the client. Countertransference can be negative or positive, but needs to be monitored very closely and counselors should seek supervision whenever countertransference is occurring. It is important to be self-aware of our feelings about our clients, and it is unacceptable to allow those feelings to interfere with our services. Countertransference can also be a signal that we have some issues that need to be addressed or resolved. If we as the human service professional are experiencing countertransference, and we can identify why these feelings are so strong, it is an opportunity for us to learn something valuable about ourselves. The acceptance of one's feelings and examining them for understanding increases our understanding of ourselves and makes us more useful to our clients.